Hello, and welcome to Math Made Easy with Mr. S, a YouTube channel dedicated to showing you that math really can be easy if you work hard and you're taught the right way. Today we're going to talk about solving one-step equations by multiplying and dividing. Okay, so before we start looking at some examples of how it works, first thing I want to talk about is some important terms that we need to know. Okay, so when we start talking about solving with multiplying and dividing, we're going to mention the word coefficient, which is the number that's attached to the variable. Okay, so for example, if we have 2x or if we have 7m, anytime you have a term that looks like this, the number is considered the coefficient and the variable is the letter. Okay, so 2 is the coefficient, x is the letter, or 7 is the coefficient, and m is the letter. Okay, but it has to be attached to the variable, because if you look at x plus 8, you'll notice this addition sign is in between them. That means they are not attached, which means when I look at this, 8 is not a coefficient. Okay, 8 is considered a constant, which we will talk about as we get further into solving equations. Okay, so coefficient's the number, variable is the letter. Some other important things we need to remember when we're solving equations by multiplying or dividing. Then when we have a term like 2x, this means that 2 is multiplied by whatever x is. Okay, this is 2 times x. That becomes important when we solve. We also have to know that x over 2 is or means x divided by 2. Okay, that becomes important also. This means we are taking whatever x is and dividing it by 2 to get our answer. Okay, we also need to know that when you divide a number by itself, for example, 3 divided by 3 is always equal to 1. Okay, any number divided by itself is always equal to 1. We have fractions multiplied by reciprocals. Okay, anytime you have a fraction and you multiply it by its reciprocal, which means you just flip it over. Okay, so 1 over 8 and 8 over 1 are reciprocals of each other. But whenever you multiply a number by its reciprocal, you're always going to get 1, because when you multiply, you always end up with a number divided by itself. Okay, so anytime you multiply a number by its reciprocal, you always get 1. Okay, now that we have that important information, let's take a look at how to solve an equation by multiplying or dividing. So like we talked about, when we see this, this means to do 2 times x. And what we're trying to do when we solve an equation is we are trying to isolate the variable, which means get it by itself. Okay, so we're trying to get this 2 to go away, so all we have is x. And we're going to do that isolating or eliminating that 2 by isolating the variable here by doing the inverse or opposite operation. Okay, so what that means is this is 2 times x. So when we think about math processes, division is the opposite of multiplication. So since they're doing 2 times a number to get 10, the way we solve it is we are going to divide by the coefficient of 2. Okay, we're trying to make this 2 go away. So the way we make it go away is we divide by 2. Because 2 divided by 2, like we talked about on the last slide, is 1, which leaves us with just x, which is what we're trying to find. So if we divide the left side by 2, remember we have to do the same thing on both sides of the equation to keep it equal. So if I divide the left side by 2, I have to divide the right side by 2. Which is why when we solve this equation, we end up with x by itself equals 5. Okay, so x equals 5 would be our solution. Good thing about equations, we can always check to see if we're right. Okay, so if I find out that x is 5, if I want to check it, I just plug my 5 in for x. So instead of 2 times x equals 10, we're going to think of it as 2 times 5 equals 10. And since 2 times 5 equals 10, we're good. That is the correct answer. Okay, so let's look at a division example this time. So this is telling us that some number divided by 2 is 25. So we want to do the inverse or opposite operation. Okay, so the opposite of division is multiplication. So if some number divided by 2 is 25, we're going to solve it by multiplying to solve it. And since they're dividing by 2, we're going to multiply by 2. But when we multiply by 2 over 1 because we need a fraction times a fraction. Okay, whenever you're multiplying a fraction, you need a fraction to multiply it by. So when I do 2 over 1 times x over 2, what's going to happen is, since there's an x on top and an x on the bottom, those are going to cancel each other out and leave us with just this x over 1, which is just x. Okay, and if I multiply the left side by 2, I also have to multiply the right-hand side by 2 because I've got to keep it equal. And when I do that, I end up with x equals 50. Okay, so then I check my answer again to make sure I have it correct. So instead of some number divided by 2 or x divided by 2, we plug 50 in, and we look at it as 50 divided by 2. And since 50 divided by 2 is 25, we're good. Okay, so let's look at a couple more examples. Okay, this time I've flipped the equation. Now the x is on the right instead of the left. Good thing is, doesn't matter. Okay, regardless of what side your variable's on, when you solve an equation, you do the opposite process. Okay, so if I've got this flipped, this still means to do 7 times x. So since this is a multiplication problem, division's the opposite of multiplication, so we're going to divide both sides by 7. Okay, we divide this side by 7 because that's what the coefficient is. We always divide by the coefficient of x so that it'll cancel out and leave us with just our variable. Well, if I divide the right side by 7, I got to divide the left side by 7 to keep it equal. And when I do that, this x is by itself, and 63 divided by 7 is 9. Okay, but let's check to make sure we got the right answer. So to check it, instead of 7 times x, I'm going to do 7 times 9. And since 7 times 9 is 63, we're good. Okay, we have the correct answer. All right, last example. Okay, let's do one more division. This time, like with the last one, we just flip the x from the left to the right because it doesn't matter what order our equation's in. We're still going to look at it from the same aspect. Since this is some number divided by 5 is 12, multiplication is the opposite of division, so we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Okay, we're trying to get this 5 to go away, so we multiply by 5 over 1. Okay, we use 5 over 1 so that we can make those 5s cancel out, and we're left with just x over 1, which is just x. Okay, but if I multiply the right side by 5, I multiply the left side by 5. Notice I don't use 5 over 1 here because 12 is already a regular whole number, so I'm just going to use a regular whole number of 5. No reason to use a fraction unless we're working with a fraction. And since 12 times 5 is 60, that's our solution. Okay, so to check it, instead of x divided by 5, we're going to do 60 divided by 5. Since we do get 12, we know we have the right answer. Okay, so that's how you solve a one-step equation by multiplying and dividing. Okay, we also talked about, or on a previous video, I talked about how to solve a one-step equation by adding and subtracting. Okay, you might want to go to my channel and watch that video as well, because you need to know both techniques. You need to know how to do it with adding and subtracting, and how to do it with multiplying and dividing to do multi-step equations when those come up. Okay, so make sure you watch the adding and subtracting to go with this multiplying and dividing. Most important thing I can tell you is just don't give up. Okay, if you're not sure what to do, if you're not understanding what the video shows you, watch it again. Okay, pay close attention, follow along carefully until you understand it, until you can solve a one-step equation by multiplying and dividing. But don't give up. Okay, just keep on trying, do some practice problems until you figure it out, because it's just going to build and build and build as you solve equations. Okay, if you found this video valuable, please share, like, subscribe, comment, tell me some concepts you'd like me to go over. But please like, subscribe, and share. Let's build this channel so we can show everybody that math really is easy. And hope to see you again. Have a great day, and be good to each other.